Hello, you're very welcome along to the Matchbook Cheltenham podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and we're back once again with Micheál Deasy and Matt Toombs. This week, we're going to be previewing the Stayers Hurdle. And Deasy, you may or may not know this, our first preview last year was on the Stayers Hurdle, where somebody put up Florian Porter, the winner, at a decent price. What are your thoughts on that? Was it you?
No, it wasn't me. I had no interest in this race last year, and I have no interest in this race this year.
Setting it up for us beautifully as always.
well,
So Deasy,
well done, Dan. Well done. That was a
Thank you.
great shout.
Still living off it, unfortunately. Over to Matt Toombs. Matt, how are you doing? You looking forward to the Stayers Hurdle, and you do have a selection.
I do. I'm looking forward to it more now because it looks increasingly competitive. Every week, seemingly a new realistic challenger emerges from nowhere.
Yeah, it's one of those Ante-Post markets that has been brilliant to watch when the trials come, post-trials, and then even a little bit of mess in between trainers' quotes. We'll get into all that before we start. And before we do look at the prices, Matt, and then I'll bring in our competition as well. Just talk to us about the first trend for people to look out for as we go through this podcast.
Yeah, this trend reflects the evolution of the staying hurdle division. It was always the poor relation, still is in DC's mind. Yeah, people like Ted Walsh always used to say nobody gets into training trying to stay as hurdle winner. But attitudes have changed. In particular, the concentration of the best horses in fewer hands has made the Stayers Hurdle a more attractive target, given the need to split horses up. So this trend is about predictability. In the first 14 renewals this century, every winner went off 9.5 or shorter and from the front four in the market. Since then, only 3 of the 8 winners have gone off shorter than 11.0. There's no established bomb-proof star in the field. With so many feasible winners, it's shaping into a really competitive race. Stayers is no longer a race where most years there's a favourite who's real banker material. So I'd be nervous about taking a short price here. The only reason I could see Ante-Post value towards the front of the market is if you think this is going to cut up. Blazing Cal and Florian Porter have had issues. Maurice Rock could end up in the Mayor's Hurdle. It could happen. But this is a deep field, and the likelihood is that plenty of these will line up. So I think it's a real race to be trying to find some value at a price.
Okay, that's got me pretty excited about looking at these prices. And before we look at these prices, if you entered our competition last week to win a £25 free bet on the YouTube videos, head over there now, see if you were selected as the winner at random. And what we'll do this week is the same competition again. If you're listening on the podcast, head over to that YouTube comment anything you like, £25 free bet, either feedback or questions for Matt or D, so I can put them to the guys, or let us know your selection as well. We do check and read them all. We'll look at the betting here. Stayers Hurdle betting currently on matchbook.com. And look, 3 or 4 weeks ago on the exchange, on the Matchbook betting exchange, if you are looking for a bet, an all-in price that you know a horse is going to go, invariably we will be best price on the odds checker grid. So do check that out. Maybe well worth having a punt ahead of declarations. Blazing Cal is your favorite, 4.2. Ante-Post, 5.3. Home by the Lee, 7.2. A shorter price than Florian Porter, who's 10.5. Marie's Rock, interesting runner if she goes here, 12.0. Gold Tweed, another interesting runner, 12.5. And Paisley Park, another interesting runner, 20.0. And we're bar around 41.0. There's a lot of horses in around that price, though, so wouldn't rule them out necessarily. Matt, over to you firstly. Just talk to us a little bit about the pricing, first of all, here. Maybe some horses stepping up from intermediate trips, perhaps. Another trend down the line as well.
Yeah, there's some good horses that could step up from intermediate trips for the first time, and they have a good record. And I think the reason for that is they often go steadily in the Stayers Hurdle. Speed's more important and stamina less important than the market assumes. The trend is that horses stepping up from intermediate trips, that's no further than 2 mile, 5.5 furlongs for the first time over hurdles. And it's starting at shorter than 10.0, 4 from 7 this century. Huge profits from that small sample. And of those 4 winners, more of that won the Relkey on his previous start, English Dreamer, the Kingwell, Bacchanal won the Jerry Field in 2 starts ago and had just been chinned in the Old Cleve over an intermediate trip on his previous start. Solwood won the Limestone Lad in his last run, already a 6-time Grade 1 winner. So if you're backing a horse stepping up in trip, they need to be a class act. And the other crucial factor for these classy types stepping up is how well they settle. A good example of that was the 2017 renewal, which featured 2 multiple Grade 1 winning hurdlers in Nichols Canyon and Jedski. Nichols Canyon settled beautifully and had too much toe for the 3 milers and won. Jedski didn't settle and was out in the washing. So last year, as Mayor's Hurdle winner Maurice Rock, looks as if she may be that sort of class, those 4 previous winners I've mentioned. But she is inclined to be a bit keen. She was again when bringing up the 4-timer on her seasonal return when winning the Relkey under a £6 penalty. She wasn't going away there from a confirmed stayer in Dash or Drasher, so the step up in trip could improve her if she settles. The problem with backing her at the moment is the premise of her running here appears to be the ground's got to be decent. Constitution Hill's got to get to the champion hurdle, which would mean that Epatante could get to the run in the mare's hurdle. If anything goes wrong with either of those horses, or it comes up soft, the vibes are that Marie's Rock isn't going to run. So she's a chancy Ante-Post proposition. If you like her, I'd be tempted to wait and see if she turns up. Maybe even wait to play in running on the Matchbook Exchange and see if she settles. She will be shorter after a mile if she settled, but given how competitive this looks like being, I'd hope she wouldn't contract in price that much. And that might be the time when the best value is. But I certainly think she'd be better value post-declaration if you know she's going to run.
Okay. And it's one of those, if you're listening at home, do price up the likelihood of her going. I think it's 6.0 best price out there, NRMB, where all-in price in the Matchbook Betting Exchange is 11.8 in Marie's Rock. So if you think it's a 50-50 chance, maybe do take a punt on that, or perhaps do what Matt does and see if she does settle, because the trip is a question mark. DC, I know you want to talk about a lot of these horses. Maybe just talk about the first couple in the betting. I think it's very important looking at a race to understand why a horse is a certain price. And you have a theory, probably a factual theory on Blazing Cat.
Yeah. And I should point out, it's not that I have no interest in this race. I found it incredibly hard. It's going to be a very competitive race, whatever happens on the day. And it was good last year. So Blazing Cal went to the top of the market there about a month ago winning the Boyne Hurdle after a long break. And I'd imagine that there's been kind of word about this horse since almost the start of the season from the yard. I know a few people now who are banging on about him, backing him for the Stairs Hurdle. So if you look at his price graph, he has been up and down all year. He's been as big as in the 30s and 40s, and now he's 4.0. I would imagine that there are books out there with significant liabilities on him Ante-Post from around the Limerick, North Cork, probably East Kerry area. I'd say that I know good for people myself now who have him backed at nice big prices, and I think that's why he is shortened so much. But even if you go into his profile, like Blazing Cal has a win on the old course and the new course over 3 miles. He won the new course over 3 miles. He won over 2 mile 5, beating Gino Bello. There was plenty of potential there. I mean, the only negative against him is that he was off for a long time and he could possibly bounce. If he turns up on the day, he probably will go up shorter than 4.0. I don't think they'll stop backing him if he turns up fit. So he's really just an interesting one. Looking forward to seeing how he goes. T-Hup Boudin.
Yeah.
He's such a ground dependent horse that I could not back him at the price he is now at the moment until today. If it turned up heavy ground, if it happens like last year that they're going to overwater coming up to it, it rains during the week or coming up to it, the ground goes heavy, like T-Hup has a chance in this, but I can't have him second favourite. Just looking at his back form, like all his wins have come on soft, heavy ground. All his best wins. He's really ground dependent. So if it turns up good soft or just soft, I just wouldn't fancy him over that trip. I know he's a winner at 3 miles and a half furlong this year, but I think he's very ground dependent. Home by the Lee has been probably the farm of the farm horse in Ireland in terms of the staying hurdle strip this year. And if you look back, he ran this last year. I know Matt has a stat about them can't winning if they got beaten last year, but he jumped the second last or the third last and the second last really badly and lost loads of ground. And if you watch the last, just the run to the line, there's 5 or 6 of them going for the line, and he's nowhere to be seen. He actually flies home from the last, absolutely flies home to get 6th. He came from nowhere. So he's stepped up a big time this year. Again, but again, that reflects his price. I mean, on bare form, he should probably be favoured. I don't know why he isn't favoured, to be honest. But look, again, Matt has a stat that they can't win this year if they are beaten last year. So I think he's out of them all. He's the one that'll put that to the test, I think.
Well, I find out, yeah.
You've mentioned Marie's Rock, like, yeah, like you couldn't. You have to be taking on or no bet concessions if you want to be betting on her for this. And you go back down through them, then like you're getting into the big prices, like Flooring Porter. I won't put up the case for him, but like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he had turned up as a much different horse on the day at Cheltenham. He's a great trainer. and you've like Paisley Park, Stuart Flann, even Buzz. Buzz was the only one I have no bet in this now. I'm not putting anything up. I said I've been talking about it for ages. I've no bet to recommend in this yet. Buzz was the one myself and you then we backed him Ante-Post at the start of the season last year, and that was one of the first dockets burned. He'd be an interesting one if he turns up, but I couldn't be recommending people put like he should be double the price really, and that kind of break to be turning up to run this fresh if he turns up at all. And I'm not going to go into the big value ones then because I know that the two of you have bigger price ones. But look, it's just not a race that I have a huge interest in putting money down on yet. So I'm not going to give a tip for all that it could be quite competitive on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to have a bet on every race, particularly at Ante-Post as well. And that was the first docket up last year, Buzz. I was fascinated on your Home by the League comments there with the stairs last year, because taking all into that context, you give him a good chance. But obviously, Matt, he's been ridden a bit differently this year, out a lot wider, and it seems to suit him a lot better, particularly over Christmas at Leopardstown. And as Dees touched on, he was a favourite post that race, and he has stayed in his box, hasn't done anything wrong, and he's been overtaken by Blaze Kell and Tiapu. Just give us the stat on Home by the League and beating horses in the stayers the previous year.
Yeah, the trend is that since Iris's Gift, who was then a novice, was beaten in 2003 before winning the following year, all 48 horses beaten in the previous renewal who ran the following year were beaten again. Now, we're talking about how much deeper a race this is these days. So perhaps when it was a shallower race, the horses being beaten were just being a bit outclassed, and therefore it might be the sort of trend that doesn't stand up as the race deepens. I agree with this. I could see why Home by the League could be favourite here. I do think that Christmas hurdle at Leopardstown, where he beat Ashdale Bob by 3 lengths, Flooring Porter 3/4 of a length away and fourth, is the best single piece of form from this season. And he was beaten in the race last year. I just would be worried that he could get done for tactical pace again, particularly if Flooring Porter tries to lead a bit of a stop-start race again and it doesn't turn into a real test of stamina. Because that race at Leopardstown, you shouldn't use simple things like times and take too much notice of them, but that was about half a minute longer a race than you typically get for a sound surface stayer. So it was a real test of stamina, and it suited him. So I'm putting up Ashdale Bob at a huge price in both the win and the place markets. He hasn't won for nearly 2 years, but he's been very consistent, form figures over hurdles of 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 4-2. And I've got a bit of a theory from watching his races, including that one. There are plenty of punters who say he doesn't stay 3 miles, keeps being placed. He was certainly travelling best in the straight at Leopardstown on soft ground, got out slogged. When I was rewatching the 3 Mile Grade 1 at last season's Punchestown Festival, they went very steadily on good to yielding ground. That should have ideally suited an intermediate trip horse. But Ashdale Bob was done for a turn of foot before staying on to be 1 1/4 length second. And they ran for another furlong. He may well have beaten Classical Dream. Yeah, perhaps he's a bit soft in a finish, and so whatever the circumstances, he'll find a way not to win. He looks to be putting it all in. There's no sign of headgear. Suggests it's not an attitude problem. And it might be that he's just a stayer who wants a sound surface. He won a Grade 2 as a novice hurdler on yielding ground. And he's just not as strong a stayer on winter soft ground, Home by the League is. And Ashdale Bob may also like the spring. His form in March and April is 1, 2, 3, 2. All in graded conditions races are graded handicaps. He's 2 from 15 the rest of the year. And that may tie into the Jessica Harrington factor. Her yard's always been streaky, but increasingly now, more flat orientated, the winter months seem to find her out of form before she returns form in the spring. Always had a good record at Punchestown. And over the last 2 seasons, she's been 7 from 121 over the 3 winter months, December through to February, then 16 from 102 in March and April. Her runners are down this season. She's been short of winners all campaign. Just a couple from 74 jumps runners since the start of June. But her 2 runners at the weekend ran really well, just got chin. She won the charity race at Punchestown yesterday. So I'd be hopeful with the spring, the annual Harrington revival will mean that horses like Ashdale Bob improves. And if he does, on a sound surface, he's got every chance of turning it round with Home by the League. It's a wide open, really competitive renewal, and I'd rather be backing a consistent horse at a juicy price in both the win and place markets, rather than try and find value at a shortest price. So I'll take a flyer on Ashdale Bob.
Okay, yeah, 46.0 currently on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. If you do fancy an Ante-Post punt, DC alluded to this horse earlier, but I am going to stick with Florian Porter to make it 3 in a row this year. Look, he's had what we would call a complicated season this year, but looking at it, it isn't probably as bad as it looks on first face. Like, he obviously did his usual stuff at first time out, wasn't the best run in the world, but his Leopardstown Christmas run, that was run on a ground that was soft last year and the year before was soft. So they're both were soft, but the 2021 Christmas Festival was ran a lot quicker. The times were a lot quicker across all the races throughout the festival on that day as well than they were last year as well. So I don't think softer ground would have particularly suited Florian Porter. He only ended up losing by 3 3/4 lengths. Danny Mullins obviously infamously dropping the hands to lose 3rd place. So I don't think it was as bad as run as last year. And the narrative of he's not the same horse as he was last year. Look, maybe it has some substance to it, particularly given that he subsequently hit a setback. But looking at Gavin Cromwell's comments, I am pretty confident that he will go to the festival here. And if he does, the 10.5 currently on offer, like, if you just picture the narrative and the decks coming in and Florian Porter in as 4th favorite, there's no way Florian Porter won't at least, if there's any good vibes in the Gavin Cromwell yard, won't at least compete for favoritism on the day. So I think 10.5 is pretty big. The last thing I would say is on the Danny Mullins ride last year, I think sometimes when a horse gets a great ride, they tend to be overbet. But given that I've never heard a ride talked about as much as Danny Mullins, that almost Florian Porter's not getting the credit for that front running ride. Like, he's ended up winning the Stayers Hurdle the year before. People tend to forget too. So I think he might even be underbet to a point before that maybe late money comes in. So I think currently on offer 10.5. There is other firms out there if you do want the NRMB, but if you want the all-in price on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, I do think 10.5 is overpriced at the moment, because I do see him going there. It is a competitive race, and he's won the race the last 2 years with a brilliant ride from Danny Mullins, and he will dictate the fractions. The only concern is if someone takes him on for the lead, we won't really know that too much till decks come in, and if there is a horse that might take him on. But obviously, if a horse takes him on, he's decreasing his own chances too. So look, I thought 10.5 is a big price based on the comments, based on the fact I don't think he isn't as, I think he's a lot closer to the horse last year as people make out to be. So that would be my selection at the current prices. I do want you to go through some of the horses at massive prices, because there are a couple that, not that you're going to make the case for, but just for people that if they want to even have a couple of quid on at the Matchbook Betting Exchange, are outrageous prices. And if you look at some of the trends Matt has talked about in the last 8 or 9 renewals, there could be one there lurking in the market.
Yeah, the first one that kind of stood out to me is Beacon Edge. I'd say there's a very good chance he's going to go for this. Now, he finished 4th to Florian Porter in 2021, beaten 5.5 lengths, and he was well punted that day. He went off, I think, 11.0, but I'm sure he was double that price in the days coming up. But they thought they had one there. He has been chasing ever since. Novice chasing, just never really, I wouldn't say never really took to it, but never really excelled at it. Like, he finished well beaten last year in the Brown Advisory. They've gone back hurdling when it began this year, and like he's warranted. He finished 3rd to Blazing Cal the last day there in the Boyne hurdle. Nothing wrong with that. And again, he's an absolutely massive price. He's been there and done it. Now again, he has a trend to buck there, but can't win. But on the day, if he's going to be around the price he is now, you would have to be backing him 4 places, 5 places. You could be getting nearly a double figure price for him to hit 3 places and 4 places. So that's definitely something to look at. Again, like, well gambled there. He's only 9 years old. He's not thoroughly exposed. He's one I would definitely look at, probably at a huge price. Looking down there, then even Sire de Burle has
my mate.
Yeah, your mate Sire de Burle. What price is he then? What price did you give him?
80. I think I saw 80. Yeah.
Yeah, again, like he was in the Boyne there last day. You were saying that he's not qualified for the attempts this year. If he's going to run the race, he'll be running in this again. Stranger things have happened. He's a serious horse. He's very, very, very good over this trip. He's someone that you could definitely look at. And like, again, if he turns up, he will be much shorter. Buzz was the other one I kind of had my eye on, but again, I could be recommending a bet. I haven't even checked if he's going to run in this, but he's something at a bigger price. But yeah, there's a lot down the bottom there that could could be interesting at huge prices, but like again, they have a significant amount of trend. Like as Matt said, the trends about the prices that is a significant one that you have to be near the top of the market. I don't think there's been too many. My memory of this is of the Stairs Hurdle is just big bucks winning it every year, and I couldn't even tell you then who won it the last 3 years besides Florian Porter, you know. So
Yeah, I can. You see, Lisnagar Oscar in there. I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah. I was second to Lisnagar Oscar. Ronald Pump. I had Ronald Pump. The big bet on him that day. Matt, 2 horses before we go that I want to talk about in and around the top of the market: Gold Tweet and Paisley Park. Any particular thoughts on them for those wanting to bet on them? And then if they are looking to bet on them, is there now a good time to bet in and around their 12.5 and 20.0 prices respectively, or maybe wait on the day and see decks, etc.?
Yeah, Gold Tweet's pretty hard to assess, isn't he? He was a revelation in the Cleve. Gabriel Leanders said he'll be supplemented. Before the race, he was saying, I'm just testing the water with Gold Tweet. I've got better horses to bring over in the future. Perhaps that was just managing expectations, but perhaps he isn't actually that good. The forms, Dashel Drasher's really a better chaser. Hurdle's form's no more than solid. Paisley Park just got caught out in a steady run race. Botock House really a handicapper. The Cleve's been a good trial since it became a 3-mile race in 2005. Winners are runners from the Cleve, 8 from 64. You made a 37% profit backing them blind. One problem about Gold Tweet is he's never run on quicker than officially soft ground. Now, with all the watering that goes on in France, that's not unusual. The ground was perhaps a little bit quicker than the officially soft in the Cleve. He has got a full brother, Sacre-Pierre, who won on good firm in the autumn for Donald McCain. So he might handle the ground, but it is a question mark. And I would imagine with the anti-French horse prejudice, he's not the type that's going to shorten. So in answer to your question, if you fancy him, I'd be inclined to wait until the day. You may well get a bigger price if a lot of these show up. Paisley Park is now 11. No horse older than 9 has won this since Crimson Embers in 1986. You've had great sight, Limestone Lab, Barracuda, Big Bucks couldn't win it as veterans. In fact, only Galmore, English Dreamer, Big Bucks and Solwit have won as a 9-year-old in the interim. So good horse though he is, Paisley Park's not in that class. And the Cleve showed that he needs a slog now. Because he's a hold-up horse, he can't force the tempo. I've been a wonderful horse for Emma Lavelle and the team, but I think this could be a race too far for him.
Yeah, and even just having a look through the previous winners that I got up here on screen, no 9-year-old has won it since Solwit in 2013, and no 8-year-old has won it since Thistlecrack in 2016. So it's the last 6 years have been won by 7-year-olds, and Florian Porter the only one as the 6-year-old there. So maybe the younger horses is one to keep an eye on the Ante-Post market. Well, thanks to Matt, my thanks to DC. We will be back with another Cheltenham race to preview next Monday. Until then, take care. Do check out the Horse Racing Podcast, which will be in your feed around Friday morning, and we'll chat to you then. Bye-bye.